I'm thoroughly enjoying this season so far. Actually, before this season, I gave the first two seasons a re-binge in order to get in the mode for season three. And every time I think I can predict where I think the show is going, it does something different. So at this point, I'm like, let me just see what the show is going to throw at us, because it's really a surprise after surprise. But we're enjoying the season so much so far. My first question for you is, how does it feel to be 3 seasons in already? Well, 3 seasons airing, and then already filming the fourth season. How does it feel to be that deep into this show when it feels like the show just premiered yesterday, but now it's multiple seasons in?
It feels like a really good blessing because not a lot of shows make it this far, and it's like, being an actor from Canada, like one of the biggest goals is to make it over here in the States, and to be able to be on not only a show in general here, but to be on such a successful show, a celebrated show, a show that has such a great, beautiful fan base, and have been going, for four seasons now deep.
Yeah.
Because it's only getting better, and like I was always saying that the third season's the best so far, but then now what we have cooking up for the fourth season, I mean, good Lord. It's like you're gonna have to get yourself like at least a 5 set of pearls, so that once you've broken the first one, you can get the next one. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a very big blessing, and I'm really happy.
Yes. And of course, there are so many legends that are on the show, from Mary J. Blige to Method Man to Lorenz Tate. Has it gotten a little bit normal, working with these people day in and day out, having to share, some of the most iconic scenes so far in the show? A lot of those are like with you and some of these characters. So how's that experience been like as well?
I don't think it'll ever be normal, because there's always a surprise. You're interacting with them, on a peer level, and then you'll turn around and see that they just did a sold out performance somewhere. Mm-hmm. You're like, oh yeah, because that's them and that's what they do. Like they are still that like amazing, iconic figure, and it's really like, it gets surreal sometimes, but the beauty, I think, of being an actor is you get to shed that stuff and just interact character to character. No matter what the dynamic is, you can just speak your truth and speak to a human experience. So all that other stuff, fades away. And I think for Mary, for Method, and for Lorenz, they don't wear their iconic status on them. They come in, they're very professional. They love to work. They love to tell these stories. They're very beautiful artists and human beings, and they really care about the work. So when you have people like that, I think, one, it elevates the platform that you're working on. 2, it makes everyone feel more comfortable and more safe to tell the truth and tell these stories and not feel like they have to tiptoe. Mm-hmm. And 3, you get to sharpen yourself as an actor and sharpen yourself as an artist, because you're working with someone who cares. Like, oh, I care and you care. Mm-hmm. Now that's out of the way, we can work deeper, and really like, all right, like, forget what the director's saying, forget what, yes, but we care about these characters and we've been with them for 3-4 seasons. So what else can we sprinkle in that we know, is a human trait? The writers do an amazing job. But as actors, we get to bring a little bit more spice and a little bit more like, okay, they got the oregano and they got the black pepper and they got the, what I mean? But let's sprinkle a little cayenne in here. I bet you didn't think that was gonna work, and it did. And they come in and they're just so prepared and so well. It's just like, it's a great example, as a young artist, to be able to watch someone who has such a storied career and is still such a humble artist.
Yes. And how would you describe Dru's journey over the past, 2 seasons leading to this season? Because I think it's kind of interesting, because it seems like he's at a point where he's kind of leaned into both his family and what they expect of him, but at the same time, he kind of also seems to be leaning into his identity and what he wants at the same time. And somehow you would think those two are kind of like, split and go in different directions. They're kind of going similar directions for him, it seems, so far in this season. So how would you describe his journey so far in the show?
I would describe his journey so far as, trying to find his station and his identity in the family. It's like that middle child syndrome. Who am I, right? And I feel like a lot of people infer, what they believe to, be Dru, and how he interacts on the outside. Like, Dru's a very quiet one. He's a very cerebral one. He thinks a lot. He's very smart. He's very calculated and all those things. And, we're not just one thing as human beings, right?
Yeah.
So what other colors can Dru show? And what other things can come out of it? And we've seen it in episode 2 so far, going through an emotional experience and just letting that infuse how he does business. Mm-hmm. And, that idea of, wow, I've been slacking. Let me get back on track, let me get back on track the right way. And I like being able to show that, because everyone thinks Dru can't get down, or Dru is shirking his responsibilities to focus on his relationship. And you see what happens when those worlds kind of separate. He's very capable of doing that. So we're gonna see more of that going forward.
Yeah. And speaking of episode 2 and kind of what we see, transpire in that episode, how does this set the stage for his relationship with Everett? When we see this partner, is that a turning point? What can you tease from what's to expect from how things play out from that point on?
Dru has to get back to his responsibilities. And so that's going to come to a head in a way we haven't seen so far. And there's going to be, I can't speak too much on it, but I think there's going to be a really polarizing push and pull with him on what he needs to do versus what's in his heart.
Yeah. And he also seems to be, from last season and this season so far, he's always pulled in different directions, whether that's, Kane and Diana, whether that's Monet and Lorenzo, whether that's Everett and his family. He's always kind of stuck in the middle between separate parties. Why do you think that kind of shapes his mind? Do you think that also shapes his mindset of trying to, appease as many people as possible? What do you think his driving motivation is when he's put in these situations where he has to make a decision?
I think Dru would be a great politician. He's able to walk so many different worlds and have his hand in so many different pots, and I think balance it really well. That does get stressful, as a young man trying to find agency for yourself. But I think so far he's done a really good job of it. And I think I've always kind of seen that, that diplomatic approach to situations, being able to, know how to handle people. Yeah. Dru knows how to handle people really well. And it's actually something that I've kind of been let me see if I can absorb some of this into my personal life as well, and see how to, be a little bit more, not people pleasing, but being able to be more diplomatic in how I interact with people. Because I used to be such a hothead when I was younger. All I wanted to do was fight. So I was now I was okay, how do I, speak better and sharpen the tongue more to be more facile in how I navigate human interaction. I sound like an alien, but.
And one thing that, I like about Ghost is that our characters, they all kind of exist within this moral gray area. Even though you can say that something that Monet does or Kane does or Tariq does or Dru does, that could be, defined by some people as morally reprehensible, or some people may say, the ends justify the means. But at the end of the day, you can still see the life lens that this character is viewing a certain scenario by. And I want to know from you, as an actor, do you think it's good to have these roles at which it really isn't defined what's true or what's not true, what's yes or no, but it's kind of in the middle? I think that's a lot of the characters on Ghost are kind of like this. They're morally gray. They're not good or bad. They're just doing what it takes to survive, pretty much. Is that something that you seek out as an actor, you think?
Yeah. I one of my biggest missions, I think, as an actor so far, anyways, is being able to tell stories of redemption and being able to tell stories of forgiveness and human stories. And in order to be redeemed, you have to be reprehensible. You know, you have to do the thing that is considered unforgivable. You have to be in a place where, you know, you have to come to the mercy of God. You know what I mean? In that space where if you are, you know, living like a saint, then don't nobody need to talk to you, right? Like you don't need that message. You don't need to be what we think is we don't need to be, you know, approaching that way. But when you're in that space of like you're surviving and you're trying to make a space for yourself, and you have to do what we consider morally reprehensible things, we're kind of in a space at the whims of other people, you know, and I think a lot of human beings can relate to that, you know, not feeling like you're in control of your own path, not feeling like you can, you know, you got to pay these bills. You want to do this, but you got to pay these bills. You got these kids to take care of. You know, you didn't have this growing up. And a lot of people, especially in our generation now, a lot of people are building new things, right? Are carving out spaces for themselves that have never been broke down. I always go back to what Kanye said when he had that Sway in the Morning interview. And he said, what I'm trying to do, nobody never broke down. And that was like 2016, right? Something like that. And 2014, I think. And I feel like it went over a lot of people's heads. You got to think about, like, you're doing something that's never been done before in this space. No one has done it in your family, right? So now you have a space, you're in a world now where you have a different kind of opportunity. And you have to make it so now the generation after you has a little bit easier than what you had. So yes, these things what we're doing are bad and considered, but in your mind, you're like, if I could just get to that spot, then they don't have to do what I did. Yeah. They could start the game on easy mode, you know? And I think that's what this North America is built off of, right? You know, we had to do a little dirt, had to bootleg a little bit, you know, had to get, you know, and then now we can be upstanding businessmen and women, you know? So it's like that, like, micro idea, it goes down to the nuance of, you know, a lot of Black communities where they're starting from negative and having to build, and hopefully my kid doesn't have to do that, or my cousin doesn't have to do that, or my nephew doesn't have to do that. And I can give it to them, and they can go, I had to do the dirt and sacrifice so that they don't have to do the dirt. And I think that's what Monet approaches the kids too, you know? It's like, I had to do it so that they can go and, you know, start from zero, or start from a better place than I started from.
Because when you think about, you know, it's also carries through generations too. So it's always how we think about, you know, everyone always uses the phrase like breaking generational curses and things like that. Yes. But it carries on from time to time. So and it's kind of like, you know, you're thinking like, as long as I break the cycle, then, you know, my children and grandchildren, they have a shot at this. And I think a lot of times you have to be put in those situations in order to, like, truly to develop that mindset. You know, it's even when we think about, you know, in terms of privilege, like sometimes you want your kids and your children and grandchildren to be privileged so they wouldn't have to do what you did. I think that's the mindset of a lot of the characters in the show for sure.
And I think it's also like what the benefit of being able to, like, build yourself up from not having anything is the fact that, like, God forbid you had to go back to that. You know how to survive. So you know how to be a base, and you know how to be a bound. You know how to have and not have. And so when you give to others, it's from that place of, now I can help you out because nobody helped me out. A lot of the time I feel like we get jaded by no one having helped us. And so we're like, ain't nobody helped me, so like you got to do it on your own. But if we can just flip the switch a little bit and be like, no one helped me, and I wish I had that help. I wish I had this. And so I'm gonna give it to somebody that might be needing that because I see that in them. And then now they don't have to start from that place anymore and maybe not do the dirt that I had to do. And that, I think that's how we heal. But I think there's a lot of, like we were talking about, reprehensible things, right? A lot of judgment on that. A lot of judgment on that. Of course, you know, we have to have some kind of, like, you know, this is bad, this is good kind of thing. That's how we live. It's how human beings tell stories. But it's like, if we remove judgment and be like, what did you have to do or go through to get to this place, right? Nobody wants to be doing dirt. It's not the choice. Yeah. You know, I woke up today and I want to be selling all the drugs in the world. Like, you know what I mean? Like, no, like, that's what you were given, so you're gonna make gold out of that. But we got to think about, like, what did that person have to go through in order to get to that situation? And if they didn't have to do that, they would probably do something else. There's a Lupe Fiasco song that I love called "Could Have Been," where he talks about, I could have been this, I could have been this, I could have been washing the car, I could have been this, I could have been, you know, if I wasn't rapping. And it's like, we have the potential to be anything and everything, especially in this modern day world, you know, in a space where we have access to more things than we've ever had access to. So it's like, there's this weird space that we're in now where it's like, there's so much that we're capable of doing. The world is open to us now. And we actually belong in the world.
Yeah.
You know?
And this is kind of a similar conversation as some of the characters even have on the show, even as you know, even in last week's episode, why Effie's doing it, why Tariq's doing it, why Braden's doing it, and why the Tejadas are doing it. Like, you know, Effie's telling Tariq, you know, I have student loans to pay. And then it's like, you know, I'm trying to get out. And then Braden, you know, he has his reasons for why he's in it as well. And it differs, and it looks like different things to different people. But it's the judgment where it's like, okay, do you have to do this? Or like, I have to do this to stay alive, or I have to do this to like make a living, or I have to do this to get out of this situation I'm in, or I have to do this to prove a point to my family. It all differs, but I think it's taking the judgment aspect out of it that allows it to be kind of like on a level playing field.
It's like that's what, you know, the job of an actor is to bring empathy and remove judgment, you know, from these characters, you know, and we have to be able to tell the truth in that way, in that space, and, you know, bring the consequences with those things. We kind of lead to our own suffering a lot of the time, right? So how do we truthfully tell these stories, truthfully tell the consequences of these stories, and make it as empathetic as possible? And I love that, you know, the Effie journey where she's like, I got student loans to pay. That's real.
Yeah,
that's
very real.
You know how expensive school is? Like,
yes.
My goodness. Like, I was like, how is anybody supposed to pay for this?
No. I graduated college in 2015 and still paying off student loans. I mean, not as much due to the pandemic, you know, but still, you know, it's a real thing. It's a real thing because you don't want to have, that's something you have to worry about, like, not the rest of your life, but for majority of your life worrying about loans. And it's like, that's something that's like so relatable. So it's like, you know, hey, I can picture myself with this character doing this because I know that I have these bills to pay. It's interesting.
I graduated 10 years ago and I just paid off my student loan last week.
It's crazy.
Like, it was a little celebration.
Crazy. Also, I know you can't speak too much to the season. It just started, but no spoilers, but what would you think would be a common theme or a common thread throughout season 3, not only with your character, but for the show overall? Like, how would you encapsulate the theme of season 3?
Oh man, everyone's leveling up. You know, everyone's fighting for their own space and agency, independence, and elevating themselves, whether it be, you know, through their position in the business, or whether it be, you know, their position in school, or, you know, finding out who they are and growing up in that space. But it's a level up. It's a level up for sure. Everyone's on their level up mode this season.
I can say that already from the first 2 episodes. I've seen this week's, but don't want to spoil that as well. But from the first episodes I have seen, that I think that's true. That's a theme that I can already see throughout that. So. Yeah. And I also want to talk about Brother, which I know has released in the States yet, but I remember seeing it at TIFF in October last year. And it was one of my favorite films of the festival. What can you tease about that film and the character you play, and kind of like what a film like that means specifically for Black Canadians?
It reminds me of the moment where Moonlight came out. And it's something we never seen before. I felt like Black Canadians watching this story, we've never seen it before. I mean, we've lived it, we understand the story, we all relate to it in ways we haven't seen it, visually, and with the music and with the culture, and seeing our city in that way, in Toronto and in Scarborough, and it's new, it's new, and I think the story has moved so many people because it's honest, it's authentic. We did our best, like our damned best, to make sure that everything was as truthful as possible, and that we were able to take the time, and like, if dialogue didn't work here, we didn't need to say something, we would scratch it. If this moment just needed some kind of a sensitivity, a touch, a look, a powerful singular gesture, as opposed to speaking about it. There was a lot of, in this story, a lot of just showing and telling visually, as opposed to like a lot of, dialogue back and forth, explaining things, and being able to live in that space. And a lot of, we just haven't really seen that, coming out of Canada in a long time. And so I think, God willing, when it comes out in the States, it's gonna do, as amazing as it's done in Canada so far. But I think like it's one that will be a classic. I'm so happy to have been a part of this story. I was like, I need to be in this movie, bro. Like, I will be back down. Like, let me put me in, coach. Like, this movie is like, reading the story, reading the book, written by David Cherry-Andy, like just seeing this, just being able to read it and be like, I know this. I'm coming from a Caribbean household. I know this. I know what it's like to come home and like have to, find this food already left in the stove, and like, it's not mac and cheese, it's like rice and peas and oxtail, and you're like, or it's corned beef and rice, and it's just something that like, we're making like these quintessential meals that I then grew up and took for granted. I just wanted a sandwich, and now I'm on my own, living on my own. I'm like, I just want some Caribbean food. I just that old school mom's cooking, and just be able to like feel at home again, and that's what I felt watching the film, was like, I feel at home.
Yeah. And I also, I think that we need more films like this that kind of portray that Black experience of diaspora overall. Because I feel like it's always kind of limited, or we always think that, it's a universal experience, as opposed to, that people can relate to, but it's one that's also very specific as well. And I think this film, I know there's a lot of, even like UK-based coming of age films that have come out in recent years as well, that kind of adds to the canon, where we think that it's not we can all relate to a universal Black experience, but it's also different based upon where you are in the diaspora. So I think Brother is definitely something that I'm excited to see more people in the States to see. I wish we had seen it now, because I saw it so many months ago. But I can't wait for more people to see that film as well.
Me too. It's funny because you mentioned that the experience, kind of the universal Black experience. I don't know if you've seen those memes, but like, or the videos where like a person will post an experience, something very specific to Black folk, that like would be like a Southern experience, and being like, but why did I have the same do the same thing, or why did I have the same exact, there is this universality of like, is that even a word, universal? I don't know. But there is that, like, we kind of all have, for the most part, I don't want to generalize, but a lot of us have lived or experienced very similar things. And that's why stories like Love Jones do so damn well, or The Wood does so damn well, or Moonlight does so damn well, because we have all either been witness to something, experienced it ourselves, or like gone to a friend's house and seen it. You know what I mean? Like, it's all like, it's a part of, it's in our DNA, it's in our bones, it's in our blood. When we all, we see a Black dude running down the street, we all run. Like, you know what I mean? Like, just little like coded messages in us that we all can relate to. That's why, like, that phrase, not all skin folk is kinfolk.
Yeah.
That goes out the window with me. That is like, yes, we are. Yes, we are. And when we can actually like agree on that and come to terms with the fact that we are all, brothers and sisters, and we can all like do with some kind of healing and some love for each other, and not be so hard on each other and hard on ourselves, I'm telling you, man, we'll be winning in a different way.
Yeah.
You know?
I don't know if you've ever seen Harlem on Prime Video with
Absolutely, such a wonderful show.
Yeah,
I've seen season 2 yet, though.
So I think it's in season 2. There's this one scene where Shaniqua's character is, she's like, I think her phone is dying. So she's in Harlem, her phone is dying. So she's trying to run home to get her charger. And as she's like, running down the street, people see her running, and then they also start. Then you just have like all these Black people just like running down the street, have no idea where they're going, but they just know that like if they see one of us running, then something's happening. We need to run too. And then like she arrives back, and people are just like, you know, they're like, "What are we doing?" Like, oh, I can see I was running home to charge my phone, but people thought it was like a crisis because they saw one Black person running. That's something where you saw somebody running, like, okay, I need to run too. So that reminds me, like, you know, we're all like, that's an experience that like anybody can relate to, and it's what we need to, like, you know, we have that universal experience, but it's also good to have like these specific experiences.
Absolutely,
have as well, for sure. But those are all the questions I have for you. I appreciate you for chatting with me. I know you're hard at work filming season 4, so I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to chat with me, and cannot wait to see how the rest of the season pans out.